So my father, who fell in love with the snowflake in the 30s, opened a ski resort in northern Michigan at Borne Mountain, and he had brought a chairlift from Sun Valley to Borne Mountain in the late 40s, and it was actually one of the first chairlifts in the world that was ever built at Sun Valley. He brought that back, and so chairlifts were a very unusual contraption in the late 40s and early 50s. And about 1953, a gentleman by the name of Rel Maples, who happens to own the property that I'm standing on and is behind me, contacted my father, probably by telegram or letter. I think it might have been a letter, and asked my father, he had been impressed, he had read about this chairlift, this idea of a chairlift, and asked Dad if he would build one of those chairlifts on the property that he owned. He owned a hotel and a mountain adjacent to that, which is the mountain behind me. And Mr. Maples asked Dad if he would build one, and Dad said, well, I'd be interested in taking a look at it, and I may not build it for you, but I would certainly look at maybe leasing it and owning the operation, but and having a joint venture with you. So the story goes that my father actually was interested, but not that interested, because he sent my grandfather down to meet Mr. Maples, and Rel and Grandpa John Kircher got along really well. And my grandpa came back and told my father, this is going to be a great thing, Everett, you need to do this. And Dad got cold feet immediately when he actually realized he would have to try to pull this off in a far away land as Tennessee was at the time. And Dad had to be talked into it. And my grandfather basically said, if you won't do it, I'm going to do it, so you better damn well do it, Dad, or Everett. So my father, his son, succumbed to the pressure and entered into the deal with Rel Maples for a 99-year lease, and the SkyLift was born out of those conversations. So that's what I recall. Now, my father never told me that story. My grandmother actually told me that add-on, that Dad used to always gloat a little bit that he was the one that, Rel asked him, but Dad was the one that did it. But Grandma basically refreshed the whole context that he really didn't want to do it, and Grandpa had pushed him over the edge. That was kind of the inner family dynamics. And as I talked on the deck out there, that was a piece of history that got lost in our family, because Dad never told the story that he really wasn't going to do it until Grandpa pushed him. So anyway, little family dynamic 101, I guess, is what that was. So that chairlift was a chairlift, I think, from California, that was brought here and from Sugar Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe this is where I get a little foggy on where that lift came from or how it was designed. It was a single chairlift at the time, and it was one of the early chairlifts of that era, and that lasted as a single chair for a few years. And in 1954 the SkyLift opened, and sometime within a couple years after that it became a double chair. The chairs were modified, replaced, and it became a double chair. And then the chairlift was rebuilt completely in about 1988, 89, and we built a new riblet chair at that time. And then subsequently, the fire in 2016 demolished the top terminal, and we were already thinking about a transformational change, putting the chairlift in that we now have at that time, and that basically accelerated that process, and we put the lift in ahead of the other projects that we had contemplated in the SkyLift Park. And the plan for the SkyLift Park was actually already in place before the fire happened. We were in the late stages of design work and engineering on the bridge and the layout of everything on that side of the park when the fire hit. And when the fire hit, obviously it changed the dynamic, because it did two things. It took the lift out that was going to be replaced after the bridge went in, and it also took the concession facilities at the top that were going to be built as a subsequent phase. So the good news, the silver lining was, several silver linings with the horrible fire, was it allowed us to do everything at one time. The chairlift was rebuilt, and then obviously the new Sky Center was built along with the SkyBridge. So it was a transformative reopening, a rebirth of the SkyLift. And we had the lift already replaced, which would handle the new demand and capacity that we needed to support the people going up to see the SkyBridge. So the silver lining was that, and then the second piece was clearly the view, which was always spectacular, got that much better. Obviously with the devastation of the forest, it opened up the views even more so than they were, and that's made all the assets up there obviously more spectacular, seeing the Smokies as they are.